Welcome to episode 6 of yWeb3, Navigating Frontier Tech, diving into the world of digital currencies and cutting-edge technology with us. A leading exchange has secured all regulatory licenses in El Salvador, one of the first countries to legalize Bitcoin, becoming the first to handle the digital assets in that country. Meanwhile, a major European central bank is synergizing with scholars to explore digital currencies. In fintech, a renowned payment company's US dollar stablecoin enhances the industry's resilience, and we'll touch on AI's role in deciphering keystroke sounds, highlighting some of the cybersecurity risks that are continuing to occur. An essential defense company's AI competition at a top cybersecurity conference aims to fortify global defenses. We also look at a partnership between a tech giant and innovative blockchain, along with the collaborative efforts to combat climate change using open source AI. We'll go through some multifaceted uses of a brand new chain coming out from a large crypto exchange. This episode will dive into some of the large digital asset holders, tangible asset investments, and the evolving decentralized finance landscapes. Stay with us as we kind of work through what's in yWeb3 today with my two fabulous co-hosts. We have James Barnett with Shapes Immersive and Hartej with Zokyo. James, would you mind giving us your intro real quick and how you got here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jay. Pleasure to be with you and the yWhales crew. Talking about yWeb, I'm James Basnett, the CEO at Shape Immersive, which is a metaverse and Web3 studio. We focus on helping brands enter the space. So a lot of that is consulting, strategy, as well as road mapping. Really building immersive experiences, gamifying brands, gamifying brand stories, and building virtual commerce experiences, often on top of blockchain technology. Had a lot of experience working with brands like Olympics and Red Bull, and we're really excited about a new project that we're helping launch, which I think will be the first of its kind globally, on-chain, focused on onboarding an entire vertical. And I think it's going to really start to represent the future of how some of these leading brands are thinking of themselves entering the Web3 space. So that's me, and that's Shape Immersive.
Love it, and I mean you've had just hit after hit with so many people coming on board, and so we love you being that ambassador for this next version of immersive technologies that's coming down the pipe. So thank you so much for joining, and excited to hear your comments on the world that we work in today. Hartej, good to see you, sir. I'm glad you're feeling better, and as always, you're just so good to see your smiling face when you deal with so many problems in the cybersecurity world.
Good to see you, Jay. Thank you for having me back on the yWhales. As always, I love your setup. It makes me feel more futuristic. Whereas my background at the moment is a blank white room, and you did this Riverside FM did not allow my virtual background. I'm pretty pissed.
That's okay. So one of I have to have the vibrant backgrounds because I speak a lot of chaos, whereas you speak from experience as one of the leading cybersecurity firms around Web3 and smart contract technology.
Yeah. So my story, real quick, is I've been in crypto since 2014. In 2016, I decided to start selling shovels to the industry. I was living with a bunch of hackers. I was investing small sums into ICOs, and we realized that these smart contracts have critical vulnerabilities in them, and someone needs to audit this code. And the people who you would speak to that are qualified with the quality assurance mindset of ethical hackers to audit smart contracts tend to be people that have also spent a lot of time doing penetration testing, looking for holes in cloud security, social engineering. And so we decided to start the world's first blockchain cybersecurity company back in 2016 called Hosho. Hosho then converted over to Zokyo in 2018. Long story there as to how and why, but Hosho didn't survive the 2018 bear market. We were based in Las Vegas, and then Zokyo became a hybrid remote first company. We're in 19 countries, primarily known for auditing smart contracts, auditing blockchain protocols. We cover all the major chains. We try to keep up with the newer layer 1s and layer 2s that are coming up. We primarily have been auditing in the languages Solidity, which is what Ethereum is built in, Rust, which is what some chains like Near and Solana are built in. And And we even cover some of the newer languages like Move, which is what Sui and Aptos are built in, which at some point in this conversation, I think we're going in more into Aptos and Microsoft. So I'll tell you more about Move and why I think that's cool. So yeah, on the services side, we primarily do ethical hacking and traditional cybersecurity, things like auditing and pen testing as a service, but focused on Web3, focused on companies in the digital asset space. We predominantly just have been pioneering digital asset cybersecurity. And recently we've been building a product since January. It's a AI cybersecurity product for proactive threat vulnerability management. It's kind of a mouthful. We're trying to attack Splunk for Web3. So if anyone in the cybersecurity world is familiar with Splunk, we aim to basically be Splunk for Web3. When we say the word proactive, it's a big deal. It means that we're finding security vulnerabilities before, ideally, they actually happen as fast as possible. And we're leveraging a mix of machine learning and our own business logic because we run our own nodes. And we have a unique approach of capturing that data in order for us to basically flick the switch automatically to cut the bleeding when there's a security vulnerability while really keeping the enterprises in compliance. So we've built SOAR playbooks and SOC 2 compliance. Outside of security, we do have a token econ lab that is lesser known. And so we design and review token economics. We have a couple of math gurus on our side. And we, since we see a lot of deal flow, we have a small investment team as well. So we do due diligence as a service along with token economics.
I like to think that I'm busy, and then I appreciate having you two on here to make me feel like, well, I got to get back to work after this, because you guys. That's why it's great to have the professionals that are working in the industry. You guys are seeing it, you're building it, you're there. We don't just have the journalists that are talking about what they're saying. Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's dive right into it, because it's a big news week. So let's dive right into it. And the story I want to kind of kick it off with, I think, has been gathering the headlines, and I think it's important to talk about, which is PayPal. PayPal, which has been around for a number of years. Elon Musk was one of the founders way back when. So these guys, they know payments. They've got the infrastructure. They've been bought and sold, a dozen times over. I generally don't think of PayPal as being innovative. They kind of come in a little late to usually most of the games now to say, hey, we're here. And so PayPal has launched a stablecoin. Stablecoins, as you guys know, are one of the most basic parts of Web3 and Web3 adoption, along with cryptocurrencies. Is you have to be able to bounce in and out of USD at some point. The two leaders right now are Tether and Circle, and both of them have slightly different approaches to how they manage this. But PayPal is putting this together, and they've kind of jumped in. I'm not entirely sure where they believe that their market approach is going to be, other than branding, that people may or may not trust PayPal more. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I have my own, obviously, but James, let's just jump right over to you. And what's your thoughts on would you put your holdings into a PayPal stablecoin?
Yeah, so I'm going to wait a little bit to see how everything is operating on their end first, but I think it's a great move by PayPal. We're in the dark days of summer here, and news flow and trying to boost your stock price are always something that these companies are looking for. And I think this is a really low risk way of them creating some conversation about their ability to innovate. We've got 430 million customers, active PayPal accounts that's great market penetration for another stable coin here. So I think that's helpful for the space. So we think of all of those people now have got new financial products available to them in the Web3 space. We're all benefiting from it. And my understanding from this deal is that they have their stablecoin being issued by Paxos. And so they didn't really have to go through all of the rigmarole of building a new product, and getting Zokyo to come in and make sure that all your smart contracts are written correctly. And then they're able to use technology that's already proven to work, and they're just using their brand and their accounts to distribute what we could think of as innovative technology. So I think it's lots of smart business from PayPal. I don't know what the uptake is going to be. I'm interested to see how the market receives it.
Yeah, one of my challenges is I don't trust PayPal. As a brand, I try to avoid using them whenever possible. They have some policies, and when you're that big, like there's always going to be some noise. There's always going to be some decisions that somewhere in the company made. But generally, I tend to disagree with PayPal closing people's accounts based on freedom of speech issues and those kind of things. Whether I agree or don't agree, I think that your money is your money, and you shouldn't have it locked up. And PayPal has a decades long history of doing some kind of benign things. Hartej, I'm not sure how much you looked into it. I did take a quick look
I'm
at
happy to
their
share
smart
my thoughts
contract.
here. So
Oh yeah, let's go for it.
yeah, so I actually tend to give a lot of respect to PayPal, and I think that they are not to be underestimated. And I do have personal ties to the venture team there, and I know exactly how innovative they've been. I'll start by saying for anyone in the crypto space, PayPal's first investment in the Web3 space as a venture arm was Layer Zero, which is the winning cross-chain bridge at the moment in the entire Web3 space. And they've definitely had their head in the game for quite some time. And I think lest we think that this is the first time they started thinking about Web3, they've had a venture team on it for a long time. And for a company with 1.4, a little bit under it, in trillion dollars in volume, they are to be respected. And I think the news of them launching a stablecoin is super positive for the digital
Good.
asset space and its adoption. Centralized stable coins, they really do help onboard the masses to crypto. And then we have the opportunity to expose them to decentralized cryptocurrencies like perhaps Bitcoin, which today still is the only true decentralized cryptocurrency. And so a lot of the Bitcoin maxis, I think people who are only pro Bitcoin as it's the only cryptocurrency in the world, I think even they have an opportunity here to cheer on the fact that a massive company like PayPal has launched a centralized stable coin. And when you dig into centralized stable coins from a cybersecurity perspective, you'll see that a lot of them have some commonalities which do scare the types of people that are pro only Bitcoin, such as a function called asset protection. The asset protection role, it has the ability to delete your balance in two transactions. First, freeze, followed by wipe frozen assets or wipe frozen address. And in digital asset security, you refer to this as a centralization attack vector. And a lot of people in the security space have been calling out PayPal for having this function in there, but it's identical to USDC. It's
Mm-hmm.
identical to to a lot of other stable coins. I believe not USDT, but definitely USDC has this function. It's identical to theirs. Um, and I
So
think one more thing I will mention for
yeah,
those
please.
listeners that are attuned. Um, it did not, the PayPal stablecoin, it did not implement EIP 712 standards,
Okay.
and it's using Solidity compiler version 0.4.24, which is a little out of date and
I was going to
surprising
say
because
that's the older version, right?
yeah, and the token has 6 decimals. So they did a little bit of immature stuff that's a little bit surprising from a security perspective, but fixable. EIP 712 is nice to have, but it's not obligatory. I think using point 0.4 as a Solidity compiler is a bit more concerning, but the code is not that different from USDC, and I
Yep.
think this is a power move by PayPal, and overall very positive for the digital asset ecosystem.
Yeah. Now, number one, I completely agree with you. I think that there's anyone that is investing in Web3 technologies and blockchain technologies should be applauded for that. I have a concern of a lot of people not understanding what they're purchasing with the PayPal dollar. That there is no miraculous yield that they're going to get. And hearing that it's Paxos, like love Paxos, I think they're great. Um, what is your concerns around this as a security expert? They have an outdated compiler, and we just saw that
It's
was
fixed.
part of the
That stuff's
part of what that was part of
fixable.
the curve hack, wasn't it?
Well, the concern here is starting with, I'd say, we do have a mm, elephant in the room, which is regulation. We don't have clarity on US stablecoin regulation. And Paxos is the one issuing this. And it's been a few weeks before Paxos delisted multiple stablecoins. They delisted Binance USD, I believe, as the most recent.
The goal is, PayPal has, millions of businesses around the world that utilize, whether you recognize it or not, you swipe your credit card and they're using PayPal's back end. So they use them as kind of a terminal thing. Is this designed to be kind of their settlement layer? I mean, again, I always say like, hey, there's the retail traders, but is this designed, kind of the way Visa has been saying that they have their own kind of stablecoin, but no one's going to use it or buy it. It's just for their internal use. Is this kind of blending the mix of like, hey, majority of the use will be internal for them to make settlements cheaper? Or do they really think that they're going to go, and compete with Circle and Tether on this? Either one of you is fine to answer or guess.
I think that they have a viable shot at competing with Tether.
Okay.
In addition to being a settlement layer and bringing their entire settlement layer on chain. But overall, I think it makes using digital money easier. And that's a fact.
Okay.
Period. And I think PayPal has had like a very strong vision when it comes to digital money. And I think that this is like a wake-up call to this the Web3 world, that the Web2 juggernauts are still innovating. And yeah, I mean, it does make using digital money easier.
Yeah. Listen, and any on and off ramp is critically important right now because we've lost so many on and off ramps. So if this replaces any or enhances what we didn't have, again, applaud there. I think I'll hold my reserve of concerns based on how they're managing it, because that the first time that they do that freeze and wipe, it will be all over crypto Twitter. So we'll know about it very quickly.
Yeah, Jay, when I look at this move by them, I think it sets them up in some ways to support many governments with the development of CBDCs. So, if you've got a stable coin in market, you've got the team, you've got the volume, I think it makes it much easier for PayPal to go and start, supporting the development of things that look very similar. And we know our decentralized fans out there are really going to be worried, as they should be. But I think for the broader market,
They shouldn't be worried.
They
never need.
They're just trying to survive.
Fabulous. Well, let's
They'll
jump
be
over
fine
to.
surviving. They don't need anything. If anything, this is going to help them. This is just more people that are going to have the means to then buy Bitcoin. They're going to use stablecoins are an on-ramp to buying more Bitcoin. It's easier, and I think it's a much easier pitch, or buying maybe an NFT, or maybe buying something to play a game. But I think stablecoins are the on-ramp to just digital money, whether it's for gaming,
and that's where we saw,
or finally buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, no. Please, everyone, buy some Bitcoin. So let's jump over a little bit to South America. So we kind of teased it in the opener. So El Salvador, which was the one of the first countries to truly legalize Bitcoin as a legal tender. Now, again, we can talk about, is Bitcoin a currency or is a store of value, and that's an entire conversation that I think the three of us here could debate for hours and hours. But the more important part is that we've seen Binance be rejected recently in Germany. They lost their bid for regulation in the EU. They're suffering from potentially a number of lawsuits by the SEC in the United States. And El Salvador is like, come on in, man. So Binance gains full license in El Salvador, becoming the first crypto exchange to secure Bitcoin and digital asset services provider licenses. The move aims to navigate international regulatory challenge and expand its presence despite recent hurdles and executive departures. So Binance, there's no shortage of kind of issues and FUD around them. But I think the most important thing is, again, what's the win here? I think the win is that we do have an exchange that's operating. We do have new liquidity that now can be brought in to the marketplace and to the crypto cryptosphere. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, is this a big deal, and should we continue to help Binance move through, or do we need to start working on additional exchanges gaining some prominence? James, I'll kick it over to you first.
Yeah, I think that this is a great template, Binance and El Salvador, for whether it's other emerging nations or other nations who have multi-currency problems, for really being able to take a look at the future of money, the future of digital money. And I think that everyone is going to need to replicate this in some ways. So I'm watching excitedly. I want this to work. I think we all need Binance to win. And I know there's a lot of bullets coming their way from many corners, for many reasons that I just don't think are warranted. And so I want them to win, because I want all of this technology to move forward as efficiently as possible. And I think we could joke about El Salvador, but there's lots of thought leadership going on there, and I love that they're willing to try. And I hope that it works.
Fabulous. Hartej, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be noted that, first of all, Binance has like a $35 billion war chest. And that's a lot of war chest. So there's going to be countries like the United States and the UK and maybe Germany recently, where they decided not to go into Germany because of the regulatory atmosphere. And I think Binance is slowly going to bow out of a growing number of those countries, and they're going to strongly bow into where they're welcome. And El Salvador is now on that list, but it hasn't been that long since they got an operational license in Dubai, where they're actually going to be able to hold and custody your crypto assets. They got a cryptocurrency exchange license. I think that they got what's called a MVP, a minimal viable product license, from the Dubai Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority. And so they're going where they're welcome. Dubai, as we know, has been like very much innovating and welcoming all the innovators, partially because they have to, but they've been saying, hey, come here, domicile your innovative business. Oh, there's Layer Zero, the cross-chain security marketplace. um, and
Great product, by the way.
Yeah, Binance is going where they're welcome, and I think that just is what it is. I'd rather not go into the FUD of what they're accused of and all that kind of stuff. I think overall, I'm trying to just focus on the positives. I'm not the regulator. I know Binance is trying to go. They've always gone above and beyond in terms of both staying within regulation and keeping relatively good cybersecurity, at least to their extent, their beliefs. But they've always tried, let's say, a lot more than other cryptocurrency exchanges have when it comes to security. I know personally people walking around the Binance office with their keys around their neck, and they're following a procedure for sure. And that's been the case since 2015, 16.
And I will absolutely agree with you. I think that a majority of everyone is trying in a world where regulations are still emerging. There's still this, it's hard to say, hey, this is what we did 2 years ago. We didn't know any better. We didn't have any clarity. And now you want to change the rules. Cool. We see them trying. Everyone's got a history.
We have to give them like a little bit of the Uber benefit of the doubt. I know that might not be the best analogy because people hate Uber and stuff, but
I love Uber.
It's because Uber went out there and took the bad wrath, and they fought the lawsuits, and they went straight to the regulators with their dollar. Now we have like dozens of competitors in every other country in the world, and Binance is playing a very similar role with their own bankroll, and they're trying to follow the rules that they can and just bring global digital asset adoption. But at the same time, thank God for DeFi, because now we have very legitimate decentralized exchange options with no KYC, where it wasn't that long ago that you couldn't say that. And so, centralized exchanges overall just don't carry as much weight in my mind anymore.
Yeah, and I'll give Binance and Coinbase and everyone else the benefit of the doubt. Like they're trying, they're trailblazing, and if we left and waited for the traditional financial institutions, it would never happen. They're not interested in upending their control that they have, and so while we may not agree with every token that they list, we may not agree with every tweet that they send. We look at the space that they're playing in and where they're going, and it's just a brand new market that we're all trying to figure out how to work with every day. So I agree. Good comment. Let's jump into a little bit of AI because again, Web3, I include AI in there. It's the next iteration of the internet. AI by itself is not very fun unless you have it connected to things, and I believe that the best usage of blockchain is going to be machines in a variety of ways. So but with that comes concerns because they are very smart and they don't really have opinions or thoughts or feelings. They just do whatever is told. And this is an article that kind of really hit me hard because we predominantly use Zoom. And so real quick, the article is Zoom altered their terms of services, raising concerns as users fear the company was gaining broad rights to utilize private meeting content for AI training. Zoom clarified that content isn't used without consumers' consent, but it's always the same thing. The damage has kind of slowly been done, and now there's some concerns. And here's the reasons why. So we hold hundreds of Zooms a week. This is how we meet. We're decentralized, and we rely on the privacy of Zoom to be able to hold private meetings. We're talking about again, we need our privacy, whether it's talk about money, infrastructure, whatever the case is. We have a button that we can push that records the conversation. But the new kind of thing that we've seen pushing in quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, is people bring their AI bots to the meetings. And I always laugh because when we host like our larger fireside where there can be a couple hundred real humans in there, we can be inundated with an equal number of their AI bots trying to jump in and record and dictate these conversations, and we don't let them in. But believe me, sometimes there's 30, 40, 50 bots that are in the waiting room, because if you try to kick them out, they just keep coming back in. So it's already a problem. It's already something that's occurring. And to hear Zoom clearly wants to create their own product. They would like to upcharge, I'm sure, for the service, to have it just built in so you don't have to do it. but how are we going to manage our privacy when sometimes you don't even know these things are occurring, and they're so smart? Hartej, I'm sure you got a few thoughts on this real quick.
Yeah, I feel like Zoom's privacy policy is extremely opaque, and we did read into this as soon as it came out about the Zoom AI training. And when you read into it, you realize that Zoom is claiming transferable rights to all content transmitted over its service. So whether it's your class lecture or our yWhales talks, those could be sold by Zoom to somebody else. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, because I will say that in the cybersecurity world, a lot of top tier publicly traded security companies will send you a Zoom link instead of Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
And they'll say Google Hangouts it's not as secure. And I don't know. This is not investment advice, but maybe someone needs to short their stock. Like, I don't know. Like, this is a bad move.
And
Yeah,
they had a bad week, right? There's a couple hits here. There's the the privacy policies that we're pushing forward, and they also got hit for demanding that their staff come back to the office a few days a week. You're supposed to be the champion of remote working, and when my read of, because I think they got to 8,400 employees, which is pretty amazing, especially when we look at what's happened with Elon and Twitter and X, and getting rid of 75% of the workforce there, and then hitting monthly numbers that we've never seen before. I think there's something happening in the background at Zoom, or a lot happening there. I think the company's probably struggling, and so we're having to overreach from a privacy standpoint as a result of maybe stumbling performance. Maybe they can see that they've got to overreach to stay alive in some ways, and I think that's concerning. So I'm excited for whoever wants to compete against them.
Yeah, it's crazy. The terms of service now allow for machine learning and AI and grant irrevocable rights to Zoom. Excellent. Really smart.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
there's a
people in
reason why.
healthcare, privacy, like if you're in healthcare, you can literally just never use Zoom again. Like,
And like I said, as far as all the services between Microsoft and Google and somebody actually said the word Skype the other day, and I said, oh my god, that's still a thing. But
Teams.
like there you go. and I like Zoom. It's the highest quality. It works. They were there. Right at the beginning of COVID, where kind of and they scaled. It was when Teams was crashing and everything else was crashing, Zoom was still working, and the schools adopted it. And so, I love the aspects of these technologies, but there's no kind of gatekeeper really helping people to watch this. And while the news is grabbing a hold of it, there is no regulation. James, I worry same as you do. If I'm having a client meeting and we're both under NDA and we're talking about client engagement or soon to come products, depending on whatever the case is, like where's the liability if I send a Zoom link and somehow that leaks out? Like, did I violate the NDA because I'm using Zoom? So there's a lot of legal issues that come into play when again, I understand a new product, they want to sell something and some upcharge for something, but like it's scary for me trying to adhere to the laws and regulations and my fiduciary duty as an actual business operator, let alone healthcare, where like you don't want to have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at generative AI right now very interestingly from a creative standpoint around things like idea generation. A lot of what we do at Shape, and I know that what you're doing at yWhales is talking about the future.
Mm-hmm.
We're having to figure out where the market is going, where the puck is going, and how we can get there and help our customer clients and partners achieve that vision. And sometimes it takes us 12 months, 24 months to be able to build some of these products. So I think if we're starting to talk about it and we've got these services, whether it's Zoom or whether it's even just the note takers that are recording our words, those ideas, and then throwing that into LLM training databases, it means that we are going to be less valuable as idea people and as innovative companies. And so I think that is of chief concern too, is really just the machines are going to be able to replicate our ideas and spread them around the world for free. And I think this is worse than China. At least China's got to wait until you hit market before they can copy you. These LLMs spilling your secrets next Tuesday, I think is a huge concern.
It's crazy. Oh, Hartej, you muted.
have any of you guys come across Huddle?
Mm-mm. I've heard of it, but I haven't used it.
It's HUDDLE 01, I think, .com.
Okay.
It's the Web3 alternative to platforms like Zoom.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think their vision is really all about fighting against what we're talking about right here with Zoom and having communication be more secure, efficient, reliable, and not governed by some centralized entities, but by people. And the people behind Huddle, I believe, is Protocol Labs, the Filecoin folks.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no personal ties to them. I just really respect Protocol Labs, and I think we need more Web3 alternatives, especially at like times like this. So Zoom has just done some very controversial things. What a great time for the Huddle team to do some strong marketing and get some stuff out there.
Yeah, and the thing that I love most about Web3 is, and I always refer to it as the modular internet. And I hope we get to the point where if I don't like Zoom, I don't have to reschedule everything. I don't have to make any migrate any data. I just say, what, I don't want to use your audio video engine. Let me just plug in Huddle. Let me plug in somebody else, and it doesn't have to disrupt my workflow. It doesn't have to I don't have to change UIs. And so I'm really hopeful that we get to there at some point. And Web3 is that solution.
Yeah. And Jay, I think you're making a great point about the note takers, the AI note takers. We've got to be careful of them. It seems like something that's just there in the background that's helping.
Do you kick them out, James?
I'm going to from now on. None of those are going to be allowed.
We made it a policy.
Yeah, we don't allow them.
Yeah, I think that's the right policy. We've got a couple folks on our team who want to do a great job, and I know that they're using them. The spirit of their usage is right, but without full visibility into what's happening or control over what's happening with that data, I think it makes sense for us to just kick them out. That's the movement we should start here.
Well, speaking of the landscape and choices, James, you guys put together this 2023 MAD multi-language AI data landscape, thing, and it's so cool. So talk us through, because now everyone, I mean, I think you just grabbed every logo that existed, but it seems like there's so much that's occurring right now in the space, and everyone is getting into the game of AI. It's the new buzzword. It's replaced crypto. Talk through what you guys are seeing, and how in depth it's starting to get, and that there is no technology that is almost existing without having an AI footer attached to it nowadays.
Yeah, well, at Shape, we're trying to help our customers understand what's happening next, usually around content that we're developing and where that content is living. And there's a lot of questions coming from all corners of the enterprise around AI. How do we build a practice around it? What's our leadership look like? Where does it fit into our workflows? And so we are increasingly in these conversations where we're trying to help them understand what the landscape looks like, and how quickly it's moving. And I think, some of the takeaways there is just that all companies end up becoming AI companies, the same way that all companies ended up having an internet component or a technology component. You need to have a website at some point when the internet popped up, and you need to have computers somewhere, to make things possible. And I think what we're seeing right now is the AI hype trend, and at maturity, all of this kind of goes away, right? It's just AI is just technology again underneath it all. The speed at which it's evolving, I think, is making it very, very difficult for organizations. And so we're advising that every org needs to have some leadership internally. So whether it's somebody that is solely focused on AI and understanding how to leverage those tools within their current operations, or if they're external partners who are just, whether it's on a monthly or a quarterly basis, helping guide on how can we help you become more efficient, be more productive with the dollars that you're spending. And we think that that's the only way to move forward here. We look at just what is a very intimidating landscape, and this is missing many of the companies that are out there. And what we're seeing is, so far in 2023, is about $14 billion that has been deployed by VCs into funding of AI and data companies. And I saw an estimate yesterday that could end up being 42 billion by the end of the year. Right. So certainly has taken a lot of the thunder. We know there's a lot of VCs out there that were reactionary to Web3, didn't quite understand it, but felt they needed to deploy capital because we were in such a bull market. A lot of that money has kind of frozen up now. Is a lot of that being redistributed into AI companies. I think what I love seeing right now is that great young companies or companies that want to do a better job have tools now to do so. Generative AI, I think, makes all of our developers produce somewhere between 2 and 5x what they were producing before. I think we can get more per dollar. And when we look at Web3, there's two areas that we're constantly hoping that there would be greater improvements on. One is security, which is why Zokyo is so important. The other is on UX. And so if every Web3 company and project had more resources to have better UX, better security, I think that the entire space would evolve faster and would be adopted at a faster pace. And so I think that generative AI and how it's being fed into Web3, into our crypto companies is really important. And I hope that it makes the bull market or the bear market a little bit easier, to digest, is because as our teams shrink a little bit, we're able to maybe maintain the same level of productivity, the same level of feature development, and the same level of security.
Fabulous. Hartej, you talked earlier during the intro. You're starting to really integrate AI into your security offerings, which is great. Do the mundane things. Do the 24/7. We've seen this before. Is it getting to be the point where you see that AI can innovate itself, that it can create, new attack vectors that you didn't program it to test or trial. What's your feelings on like how close are we to like true AI, or is this a lot of this still just, machine learning type stuff?
From a security perspective and a security auditor's perspective right now, when you're auditing smart contracts, we can leverage AI by doing things like we've already built our own language learning model that has every single audit report that's ever existed in this space, and we've put it into our own model so that at the bare minimum, we're finding what has already happened in this space. And AI is definitely doing a good job of finding, I would say, the smaller security vulnerabilities in the industry. But when push comes to shove, all the more unique vulnerabilities are logic flaws, and they're all still found manually when it comes to security auditing. So I do think that is rapidly going to evolve and rapidly change because AI is getting more powerful. But security auditing will remain partially manual, and that will be a part of the long-term digital asset story. Whereas when you look at asset security in Web 2 and look at companies like Mandiant, which was acquired by Google Cloud, or Splunk, or any of these big players, excuse me, battling a head cold, um, those it's fully automated the way VCs want. And that's kind of why we're solving the problem the way we are now, is because we've been auditing since 2016 so aggressively, and we realized that if we're going to audit a government's central currency, we're going to audit an entire country's CBDC. Excuse me, I'm really sorry.
No worries, you're good.
Then what's after an audit is going to have to be real-time monitoring of that smart contract, of that code. And we're going to have to leverage machine learning in order to discover security vulnerabilities. And at the enterprise and government level, as soon as a security breach happens, the first thing you actually think about is compliance, and all the data has to go to the right departments and right places to cover yourself for compliance. And that concept is called a playbook. And in cybersecurity, when you use the word playbook, it is, if you go to DEF CON or Black Hat, the world's biggest cybersecurity conferences, you hear the word playbook about a dozen times every 5 minutes. It's barely used in cybersecurity. If you look at all the top DeFi protocols in Web3, the only publicly found playbook that we found is from the Yearn finance team. There is no public playbook in terms of security from any other protocol. And I'm not going to name names, but all the top protocols don't have a playbook. And having a SOAR, a SOAR playbook in the enterprise Web 2 world is very normal. And so this has kind of been one of the things that we've taken on our plate to solve this problem. We need to bring SOAR playbooks from Web 2 to Web 3 and leverage machine learning and AI the right way. And yeah, I'm extremely excited. This is arguably the most exciting time for the intersection of machine learning and cybersecurity, and then layer on digital assets into that. It couldn't be a more exciting time for that. We've had this vision of digital asset cybersecurity since 2016, and it was too early then. Like, now is really the time, because we are, in terms of institutions coming in, we're about to go from $1 trillion in liquidity in the entire Web3 space, and we're going to jump to 30. And it's not going to be 1 to 5 and then 5 to 7. When the institutions come, as they already are, thanks to things like what PayPal just did, it's going to go from 1 to 30. And some of the infrastructure on the bottom layer that I'm very excited about that are going to help facilitate that is Chainlink CCIP, which I think is the biggest news from ETHCC. I think that infrastructure is going to be one of the key backbones to all of the biggest institutions coming in. And I'm curious if it's being talked about out there in the verses, but at least internally we are like looking at CCIP the way we've been all in on layer 0 and watching their action and looking at all the bridges really. But it's been interesting to see the evolution there, because these are the key infrastructural components to get the enterprises to come. And you need infrastructure, you need cybersecurity, and then the liquidity comes in. So
Yep. Yeah, I've been saying forever, bridges and wallets. those are two, not the only two, but two of the biggest issues that you have. Bridges are everyone for the most part are garbage, and the wallet, kind of systems that we built are still like very juvenile compared to where I think they're going to be. And Hartej, you and I have talked about some of the stuff that we see in the works, and it's coming. But I think on that same note, we can jump a little bit back into blockchain and
yeah, I mean, we lost
cryptocurrencies.
on bridges, just to throw in the fact that we've lost a little over $3 billion in just bridge hacks in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that I actually would say that's probably on the low side of the number.
No, I think
Um,
that's it. It's a little lower than that, and that's like the total value hack to date is right around 7 billion right now.
yeah,
So out of seven, three
bridges.
is just bridge
Yeah.
related stuff, and it's all in the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, I've seen some really cool upcoming projects of bridgeless DeFi and why it's so important to be able to trade native assets cross chain. So I think that bridges are just going to go poof and disappear once that becomes more prevalent. And we'll dive into.
Controversial statement, Jay Steinbeck.
There we go. That was all the hate mail comes to me anyway. The ETH people love me. So let's jump over
disagree,
to
by
the
the way.
next controversy. So Coinbase has launched. They're in their phase launch that just came out yesterday for end users of their new Base network. So users can bridge tokens, swap, provide liquidity, make payments, register usernames, create DAOs, mint NFTs. It's kind of essentially a small little AOL for blockchains. Notable features include Uniswap, Maverick Protocol, Beam payment apps, Massa's Finance, username registrations. And we already saw their first hack of this, or not hack, but the first rug pull, which was the Bald project that happened a couple weeks ago during beta testing. What's people's thoughts on this? I respect Coinbase, again, same as everyone else, for kind of diving into this. I'm just not entirely sure, based on what's been rolled out, if they took the time on it per se. We'll start with you, Hartej.
How about we start with James? I've been rambling away.
Good, you got it.
Yeah, for the entire space, I'm going to cheer on Coinbase. We need some of our heavy hitters to remain moving forward and growing. What I like about what's happening here is that there isn't another token attached to it. So we're providing infrastructure, but without what I find typically comes with any of these these networking layers that folks put out there, that the incentives really they're cleaned up if you don't have this token that you're also trying to drive interaction with. And so I'm excited to see how it evolves. It looks like one of their top launch partners is Coca-Cola. And so we've got, maybe the biggest brand in the world, leveraging base technology. And is this a way for us to get more Web3 tech into the hands of a billion customers out there? And so I'm excited to see what Base and Coca-Cola are going to do in the space.
Yeah, I think that they're avoiding just so much regulatory scrutiny by not having a token. So compared to a long list of other folks, it's pretty interesting that they've chosen to go the non-token route. The TVL it's low, but it's not a joke. We're still in like the 140, 150 million range for TVL for Base, and Coinbase has the capability to do very strong sales and biz dev. That's why Coca-Cola is in. And so when you're IPO'd and you have that much capital and you have a strong brand and biz dev capabilities, I think it's not to be underestimated. And, we've already seen so much success out of other layer twos, like Arbitrum and Optimism are very interesting and are to be studied and looked at as successful layer twos. And we now are definitely looking at layer two wars, and layer twos are definitely a big deal. But when you launch your mainnet with 142 million in TVL, I mean, that's a big deal. They had over 100 decentralized apps on their launch. Also, I think is a big deal. Not super happy about the rug pull so early, but it's okay. It looks like, you know, they're respecting
There's
security
going to
on.
be stumbles along the way.
There's always
There's
going to be stumbles. Overall, Coinbase as a entity does really respect security, and
mhm.
that is not to be underestimated. And I think that everything they're doing is with as much sophistication as possible. I think that there's definitely been some stumbles that um, don't speak to their favor of being such a big entity. It's like you have so much money and so much capital. How'd you mess that up? There, some of that feeling is there, but maybe there's something deeper in there. And when it comes to Web3 companies not being able to incentivize the brightest minds to work for the big companies for a salary, and maybe the brightest minds are continuing to want to work for uh, smaller, more innovative entities where they have equity and they have a larger stake in the company. That is a trend, and one of the issues in our space. We're a very nascent industry, and Coinbase is one of the few that has the budget to poach the right minds from big tech. But it's is that the right move? We don't really know.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things, about Coinbase, and let's be clear, Binance has their chain, which is a layer one. Coinbase is launching a layer two, and I that's the right move for Coinbase. But I think the most interesting thing is that we now have somebody that's responsible. They're you can say decentralized as much as you want. They're responsible for this chain, and
They
I'm
want to
I'm
be.
really interested from this legal aspect when there are
That's
rug
right.
pulls, when there are issues that nodes go down. There's anything else like. How are they going to manage being an SEC compliant registered company, when these things come in? And so I look at it going, Visa, and Visa's got the same thing. Visa has, their internal network. There's, I'm sure they're insured for this. It seems like they're really opening a door that I'm not sure why they would want to. Not from a technology point, not from an adoption point. I get it, I understand it, but I'm sure there was some very expensive lawyers in the room with them going, I just want to make sure you guys understand what's happening by you taking this responsibility on and letting people do whatever they want with it.
But I think from an American perspective, Coinbase needs to do this for everybody else. And it's no different than a bulge bracket bank that has continued to do many things, and then
Mm-hmm.
they get slapped by the government, and Jamie Dimon just pays a fine. I mean, you can Google the words JP Morgan fraud, and you find dozens of cases where they have pled guilty to fraud. Wells Fargo pleads guilty to fraud. No one goes to jail. They pay the fine and they move forward. That's the route forward for the big players at Web3. That because the SEC has not made it clear on how you can follow regulation. We have super large entities like Kraken that really want to be a bank in crypto, and they're banging on the doors of Washington D.C., begging to be regulated, begging to follow the laws, begging to not fight. And the U.S. government's not making it easy, and so the alternate is to just have a shitload of money and move forward, steam on ahead. And when the court case happens, you have the money to fight. And if anything, you'll just pay the fine like the bulge bracket banks do and move forward.
There you go.
Just a speeding ticket at the end of the day.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and like I said, it's technically, I agree with almost everything that they put through in base. I think it's sound theses, it's the correct technology. James, you guys are you work with layer ones, layer twos. You're kind of chain agnostic as far as where you deploy projects. Do you have any of your clients looking to deploy on base?
Not yet, but it is part of this conversation as we continue to look at road mapping. It's being mentioned. There's queries about it, but we don't have anything actively right now that is situated for base in the near future. Things like Coca-Cola and other leading brands starting to execute projects help stimulate that space for us. So that's really where we start to see the interest coming in. it's a lot of follow on. If Coca-Cola can do it and feel comfortable there, that's often the market validation for a lot of the clients that we have.
We have an uptick
Right.
of demand for base audits.
Okay.
That's definitely a thing. We just did DPERP and a couple of others I can't remember, but there's a lot of action popping up.
With all the movement of people, interested in Aptos, interested in Base and other ones, what's the chain that's suffering the most? Who's kind of like just, we probably aren't even hearing about them anymore. Who's kind of suffered the most and lost the most developers?
I don't know who suffered the most. I don't have an accurate action answer, but I can tell you that demand for Near has gone down. Demand for Solana has gone down. We used to have times where Solana was an overwhelming demand during its peak season. I'd say Solana and Near demand has gone down, whereas the Cosmos, Arbitrum, Polygon ecosystems continue to grow.
EVM.
I think EVM is the dominating force that is, nothing else is coming close to it. Sui and Aptos, I think, continue to swim in their own lanes, and that lane is actually closer to the lane of Coinbase and Build on Base, which is like, we're in America, we have a lot of money, we have access to institutions and enterprises, and we're gonna play a different game.
Fabulous. All right, let's bring this this conversation home with the big story in my minds, which is where's the next bull run coming? Everyone wants to know, and so I don't give predictions, I don't give prices, I don't give everything, but I'm going to give what I believe, where we've kind of devised our theses, and that's going to be around real world assets. We're talking about over $500 trillion of real world assets that exist around the world, and so we have less than $1.5 trillion currently of any amount of value in overall blockchain technology right now. So real world value assets moved from the 13th largest kind of part of the Web3 asset class to the 10th just in the last 2 months. And there's the belief that within the next year, so sometime in 24, they'll move up to number 5 or number 6. yWhales is working on a real world asset tokenization and marketplace. We've seen a number of other people kind of working on this as well. A lot of it is not a technology issue. A lot of it's a regulatory issue. We've seen that around the world. But love to kind of hear, let's go ahead and James, I'll kick it back to you. What's the thoughts? Am I right? Am I wrong? What's your feelings?
I agree that this is going to be a force. What starts to trigger the next bull run, I think, will have, be a lot more impacted by the macro. We've seen there's a lot of correlation between liquidity and what happens to our Web3 and crypto markets. But within this space, and I started my career in blockchain would have started around, a lot of it had to do with how do we tokenize real estate assets, and because you're solving what is a current problem. And I think the regulatory in the first world, where we've got really developed, mature economies, that's where you're seeing a lot of the friction. The developing world, I think, they're the ones that will really benefit from using modern digital money systems. And I think that that's where we're going to see a lot of the uptake for real world assets being tokenized too, because they just don't have mature regulated systems to fight in competition. So I think that that's where we're going to see that. And you're going to see two things happen. One is that these systems will be used at a much faster pace in comparison to our developed economies. Two, it's going to allow much greater liquidity to flow through those economies. And so we're going to see increases in value of those assets just by nature of them being on-chain, being tokenized, being things that we can build really, really modern transactions around. And so I'm really excited about what that looks like. And I'm excited about what yWhales is putting together there.
I'm starting to feel like I'm getting old because I can say things like 10 years this and 10 years that, because at least when it comes to the Ethereum blockchain, it's been 10 years that fractional ownership tokens for real world assets have been the holy grail.
Yes.
And the only person that pops into my brain when I think about this is Vinay Gupta out of the UK, founder of Materium. And earlier this summer, Materium partnered up with Swarm. I have no personal affiliations other than just trying to keep up with this world of real world assets. And I believe, they have tackled real world assets broken up into tokens, but also securitized. I don't know for the first time ever or what, but Swarm plus Materium seems like a really interesting collaboration. On the other hand, a personal friend of mine who I went to my first startup accelerator with, Marian, he has been spending time in Namibia and has had his hands directly on a lot of mining operations. He's setting up an array of things, refining the minerals, everything from gold to copper, cobalt. And I've been learning about this world through him. And I have another friend named John Njaku who's been tackling the worlds of real estate and tech since I met him. Stanford lawyer, Columbia Masters in real estate, and founder of renthub.com. And I've been pushing him to this angle and saying you have to use blockchain since Bitcoin came out. Like since Bitcoin came out, I've been calling that friend, and now's the time actually for both of those friends to basically choose between so many tools and so many services and so many chains trying to help them. On the real estate side, my friend really needs a real estate liquid debt fund. This is something that people typically would go to a bank for, and in the current ecosystem of banks literally shutting down, it's not really easy or friendly for him to work with a liquid debt fund coming from a bank, and an on-chain liquid debt fund being fed through stable coins or any other cryptocurrency. It's awesome. I don't see anyone tackling that yet, but that's really what he needs and what people in the real estate world need. And I am a little bit besides myself when I'm seeing the fractionalization of an apartment building like viably happening today. I think it's very exciting, and we're not far off from those days of leveraging blockchain tech and NFTs for the fractionalization of real world assets and doing stuff with it. But this is also something where the regulation is not clear. What's the name of that company that fractionalized the ownership of luxury cars that you can just look at out of New York? And
I can't remember off the top
recently
of my
got
head.
slapped by the SEC as well. Rally.
Yeah, because you suddenly create a security.
Yeah, it's like Rally. Rally was backed by a lot of the top VCs. I'm not very familiar with exactly how they got in trouble with the SEC, but at least my impression of them was, you're backed by a lot of the best fintech and VC partners that I know personally, like Nika Partners. There's no way you're gonna play with the law. So when I saw them, the recent article about Rally getting in trouble, I was like, man, if Rally's getting in trouble with fractionalized ownership of assets, then everyone's going to get in trouble. Like, this is a problem in the USA.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it like this. This is one of, yWhales has a number of projects that we launch, and we have a number of vectors, and so FinRamp is our real world asset tokenization and kind of on and off ramp for real world assets. It is not a technology problem. The technology has been solved. I can, right now we're going to be going to market with protocols and partners that every one of you guys on this call and listeners like go, oh yeah, no, I know this. It's about putting the pieces together, similar to the iPod. The iPod wasn't like an invention of a bunch of new technologies. It was just this assembly of technology into like, here's a use case and here's why it is. The challenge is exactly what you said, Hartej. It's a regulatory challenge. We've figured out how to create securities on chain, not to take securities and put them on chain, but to create them on chain as a true security on chain under MiFID 2 and will move into MiCA. It requires, depending on what asset you're doing, up to 12 different licenses across about 5 to 6 different countries. It is and regulatory compliant. Like, you want to be regulatory compliant, you can do it, you can manage it. it is coming, and so that's why this is the most exciting thing to me, to see this coming. But I think it's going to take a little bit of taking the step back and saying, just because we can digitize or just because we can tokenize, how do we make sure that regulatory wise it's there? I've seen the same thing, as you, James. Like, everyone's like, real estate's highly illiquid. So we definitely can use more liquidity. Like, I'm in commercial real estate. I have a real estate brokerage on the other side of this wall that I own. And the challenge I've run into, and this is what happens. We have, I think, had 4 or 5 residential properties that were tokenized that we had clients that wanted to buy. And the first thing that we had to do when they wanted to buy this tokenized real estate was to undo that. Because you can't just throw it in an SPV and say, "Hey, check a box. We'll tokenize this SPV," because no lender is going to deal with it. No, the new buyer doesn't want to own your SPV. You have to have regulatory compliance. You have to have the governments that step in. So I see it coming. This is all I do is kind of focus on the regulatory side, and I think it's a lot closer. But none of that, like I said, the reason why I can sit here and say it's coming is because of all the conversation that we've had today about the technology being fleshed out, about, Hartej feeling comfortable with PayPal's stablecoin, with James being excited about Base and feeling like, hey, this is good, because that's the infrastructure we need. It has to be able to flow from one chain to the other. That's the win, is it's not all living on Ethereum, is that asset is real, and it moves, being chain agnostic, which is, I believe, the future, without bridges. Hartej.
The regulatory question, Jay, now we're dealing with humans, and we're dealing with competition of mature, incentivized systems. Real estate, the reason that we didn't get really invested in it, because we could see, there's a whole bunch of people here that would not want this to happen. They don't want to evolve. They're making far too much money off of it. So we're going to have to be patient. Dapper Labs, Vancouver down the street, one of the first use cases that they were focused on when they had written the spec for the ERC 721 was real estate, because it made a lot of sense that here's a place where the technology can truly help, and there just hasn't been the regulatory support. So I think it's patience. I think what we're also seeing is, like, the macro picture in the United States is causing a huge issue for us all, because there's a fear around our regional banks all being insolvent. Mm-hmm. And so this is the worst time for the U.S. to have competition for its currency. And I'm hoping that the regulatory picture clears up quickly after some of this starts to correct. I don't know if it will correct, and if that's always going to keep regulatory tension in place. I hope that's not the case. I hope that we're going to be able to get past that, but it feels to me more like a waiting game now. Yeah. I don't know how it feels for you on your side. You say you're really just focused on the regulatory piece. Is it just about patience now for us all?
It's about education. I think right now it is. You talk to anyone that is in this field that's trying to onboard and trying to everything else. It's just education in the field, getting through the FUD, getting through what's right, getting through what's wrong, and helping them to understand, what's a true hack and what's just, user incompetence, which we didn't get to a few of those stories today, like someone sending 2,500 ETH to a burn address. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if that was a hack or what it was. But Hartej, what's your kind of closing comments and thoughts around everything we've talked today?
Well, in terms of real estate, I will just add that my experience in real estate tech has been that real estate is very old school still. There's still physical paper and a lot of human beings involved. So to go from human beings and paper to the blockchain is a massive jump. And that scenario is a part of what reminds me of the recent AI talks I've been watching from Imad Mostaki, the founder of Stability AI, who should totally be on yWhales. You should interview him.
Bring him. Let's do it.
I think by far, out of anyone at a high level that's been speaking on the future of AI with, I think, a very healthy and optimistic perspective, and swinging a massive bat, because he's going up against OpenAI. He's going up against all the juggernauts that you may know. But I think Stability AI, backed by Lightspeed, is lesser known at his approach. And he talks a lot about how he's been obsessed with Web3, but why Web3 hasn't taken off at the speed that AI is. And
Yep.
this scenario is kind of a great example. AI can fit into the real estate world and solve some substantial problems, whereas fractionalizing an entire apartment building in Chicago, and it's a lot. There's a lot of humans and paperwork still. We haven't even gone to the cloud. We haven't even gone to the
Yeah.
web. We haven't even gone to Web 2. So
I've got a title company is another one of the companies I own, and let me tell you how many faxes and checks we have to mail. And I'm literally we had check fraud the other day. I said, who wants a check? ACH it, wire it. What are we doing here? This other bank requires a check.
yeah.
You're right.
But then when I look at continents like Africa, where the level of growth over the next 2 decades is going to be so astronomically high and impressive, and in a world where instead of building more infrastructure for fiber internet, we are already using Starlink and satellite internets, and we're going straight to on-chain, and we're going straight to using AI. This is a big reason why it's hard for any human to not be bullish on the subcontinent of Africa, which is it's going to grow, and everyone there is so young, and it's insane. The rest of the world's average age is very high.
Yeah, and they're desperate for solutions, technology solutions. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm speaking at a Frontier Tech workshop. I'm actually hosting the workshop in South Africa next week, so this show will be dark. And I have to tell you, it's been one of the we sold out in person within a couple hours to attend in person, and then virtual. The links have just been or the registrations have been coming in. So you're entirely right. Emerging countries are the most desperate for any solution, whereas the United States, kind of like, we've got infrastructure.
Yeah, the next few years are a little bit tricky in Africa, especially right now. If you look at the French, the nations that are under the French formerly rule or French-speaking countries, there's 12 of them in West Africa, and Senegal is going through a revolution as we speak, and Nigeria as we speak, Ivory Coast as we speak. And a lot of these countries really are, what's fundamentally happening in the big picture has to do with the fact that the French still control their money. People in Senegal still use the French franc. They don't even use the franc in France, okay? And they control the mobile money, the orange money. So whether you earn money in the mobile or you earn money working at a store in their fiat is the French franc. So the days of French's colonization on Africa are numbered, and surprisingly, some of these countries are turning to the other extreme to now choose to partner with Russia, which is a horrible idea, and so it's sad to see that happening as well.
Viva la Bitcoin is hopefully their next war cry here.
Yeah, but I really do hope this problem solves, because along with Bitcoin, we have gold and real estate and buying land, and the fractionalization of purchasing land and art is very interesting to a very large subset of people, especially in the emerging worlds.
Beautiful.
Yeah, where we need layers of property rights technology, right?
That's
so
right.
Web3 is one big experiment, and I think we're better to run that experiment than on a fresh canvas. So we're counting on I think some of our African experiments to help show us the way of what true efficiency using Web3 technology can look like. I'm excited that you're going to Durban, Jay, and I think it's an important time to go taste that and see what the communities around that, because they want freedom probably more than the rest of us, because they have to battle it on a daily basis, and hopefully this technology is what allows them to get there.
We're excited.
We already have some auditors in Africa, by the way. We have auditors in Nigeria and Ghana.
Oh, fabulous. No, like I said,
it's Senegal. We have a senior security researcher on our AI product from Senegal, Fode Diop.
Hey, listen, like I said, the world is shifting. It's becoming much smaller, and Web3 is connecting it. Like I said, the biggest problem I have is just time zones. It's the number one issue that Web3 has not solved. But James, Hartej, thank you guys so much for joining us. The what?
So that's why I had to leave the West Coast United States. Like I love I love a lot of the geography on the west coast of North America, but that time zone is not global business friendly, and that's
Dude.
what brought me back to Europe, and it's why I'm here right now. And I feel like the future is going to be dividing time between here and Asia, not here in North America. I'll have to pop into North America to do some stuff, maybe raise some capital on Sand Hill Road, but then it's back to the rest of the world because I'm on the same time zone as most of Western Africa. I have direct
Yeah.
flights with no stopovers to most of Africa. Yeah, my colleague flew to Senegal direct on Vueling from Barcelona for under 200 euros last week.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Please look these guys up. They are absolutely amazing. The details will be in show notes. And for everyone else, we'll see you guys not next week, but in 2 weeks when I return, and I will have lots to say about my Durban African experience. Thank you guys so much. Talk soon.